I can't do this. It hurts.
We're almost there. You have to keep fighting.
No, stop. Get off me. It hurts, please. Keep walking.
Please, I can't. I know you're tired, but you have to keep moving. Don't do this. Stay with me.
Get off me.
Hold on, I'm here. Stay with me.
So cold. Don't move! I swear I will use this knife!
Okay. Just calm down. I'm not gonna hurt you.
I understand. Just take it easy. We can wait this out.
Don't make me use this.
How far is the sheriff?
She pressed a fist into her mouth and groaned. He looked around, nothing but trees and white in the narrow trail he'd cut that morning. His cabin was still a hall, but closer than anywhere else. "I won't scream again," she said. "Good. Just don't drop me." "I won't." "You swear." "I swear." He lifted her. She was lighter than she should have been. Her body went stiff, then slack. She clung to his neck like she hated him for it. Each step burned his legs. Each breath tore his chest. "You gonna kill me there?" "At my place." "Your place where?" "Just up." "You live alone?" "Yes." "Figures." Another contraction took her and she screamed anyway. He tightened his grip and kept moving. "You got family?" "No." "Friends?" "No." "Anyone looking for you?" "They will." "Who?" "Everyone." He didn't ask again. He focused on the path, the way the trees leaned, the cut of the land he knew better than faces. She went quiet. Too quiet. "Hey. Stay with me. I'm here. Say something." "I hate you." "That'll do." She laughed again, weaker this time. Blood dripped and marked their trail. He thought of the men who hunted like that, slow and patient. He pushed the thought away and pushed harder. He felt her fingers dig into his collar and then slip. He slapped her cheek, not hard, just enough to keep her with him. "Hey. Look at me. Don't. Look." She did. Tears cut clean lines through the dirt on her face. "I'm not supposed to be here," she said. "Nobody ever is. You don't understand." "Then explain." She shook her head. Pain took her again and she doubled, breath-breaking. "It's early," she said. "I don't know what that means." "It means it hurts more." "Great." She huffed a sound that might have been a laugh. He adjusted his hold and kept walking. The wind bit his ears. The trail vanished and came back. He trusted his feet and nothing else. "If they find you," she said, "they'll ask questions." "They can ask." "You answer wrong." "I don't answer at all." She closed her eyes. "Don't fall asleep." "I won't." "Say it." "I won't." He reached the door and shifted her weight. He kicked once. Nothing. He kicked again, wood cracking. He kicked a third time and the door flew open. Cold rushed in behind them. He shouted into the dark for heat, for fire, for something that wasn't silence. She woke on the floor, the rough wood pressing into her side, the cabin smelling of smoke and pine sap. Her hand went immediately to the knife at her belt. He froze in the doorway, hands raised. You try anything, you'll what? Bleed on me? I don't need you. You're in my house. Her chest heaved, and the baby kicked somewhere inside her, a sharp reminder that she couldn't just run. She refused the blanket he offered, refused the bowl of stew he brought, refused even to tell him where she'd come from. He watched her like a cautious predator, noticing details he couldn't ignore, the burned edges of a folded letter poking from her coat pocket, a faint badge-shaped scar on her wrist. He sat across from her, feeding the fire with old logs. Sparks flew up the chimney. She finally asked, quiet, almost a whisper, how far was the sheriff? He said nothing. The crackle of flames filled the room, the only sound between them. Minutes dragged, then her breathing changed, uneven, faster. She clutched the floorboards. Her water broke. He grabbed a bucket without asking, just moved. She didn't scream, just stared, eyes wide and wet. He lifted her legs carefully, his hands steady even though his heart pounded. I can't, I have to. You are, he said. She twisted toward him. Don't look at me. I won't. The baby came quickly, slick and crying, a sharp sound that cut the cabin like glass. She gasped and swore, gripping his arm. He wiped the blood, wrapped the child in her coat, and placed it in her arms. She looked down at the tiny face and finally said the name she'd given. The baby cooed once, weak but alive. They stayed still for a long moment, listening to the cabin settle around them. Then she whispered, they'll come. Who? Everyone. He nodded and went outside, tossing the bloody rags into the fire pit, watching smoke curl into the night sky. He returned, hands black with ash, and set the blanket around her shoulders. Outside, a dog barked somewhere distant, breaking the silence. The baby whimpered. She looked at him. He shrugged, no words. Outside, the snow had begun to fall heavier, covering their trail, hiding them just enough. They both sat in the firelight, neither speaking, each listening to the wind and the occasional crack of the old cabin. She leaned back against the wall, eyes closed, exhausted but alert. He watched her, unblinking, thinking about the sheriff, about families who kept secrets, about men who counted things and didn't forgive mistakes. The fire popped, sending shadows dancing across her face. The baby stirred and let out a small cry. She adjusted the blanket, held it closer. He sat back, keeping the fire between them, silent and watchful. Snow tapped the roof like a warning. She shivered. He got up and fed more logs into the fire. Don't fall asleep, he said. I won't, she whispered. He went to the door and peered out. Nothing moved except the trees, bent under snow. He slammed it shut and leaned against it for a moment, breathing. The room was quiet except for the crackling fire and the baby's soft coos. She watched him, a mix of fear and wary curiosity in her eyes. He returned to the floor near her, dropping to one knee, his hands resting on his thighs. We survived tonight. She didn't answer, just adjusted the baby, pressing it close. Hours passed, measured only by the fire's dying glow and the baby's restless breathing. She finally relaxed slightly, eyelids heavy, but her hand never left the knife. Outside, the wind moaned through the trees. He moved slowly to the fire, poked at it, then looked at her again. She was watching him, waiting, calculating. He gave no sign of what he thought, just added another log. The room smelled of smoke, blood, and sweat. She inhaled it sharply, stomach tightening with each contraction that came and went quietly now. He noticed, said nothing, only watched her, aware of how fragile it all was. Then another wave hit her. She groaned, pressed her face to the wood floor. He slid close, hands ready. You okay? She asked, voice trembling. As well as I can be, he said. The baby moved in her arms. She held it tighter. Outside, shadows shifted. He glanced toward the door, nothing. He returned his gaze to her, saw her shiver, teeth clenched. She doesn't trust me, he thought. Doesn't matter. Just stay alive. He shifted closer to the fire, warming his hands, and then offered her a blanket again. She shook her head. He didn't argue. Minutes passed. Then her hands fell to her lap, fingers brushing the baby's head. She finally let out a long exhale. He didn't comment. Silence settled heavier than the snow outside. Outside, the night deepened. The baby stirred again. She rocked it slightly, whispering, shushing, half mumbling, half talking. He listened. Footsteps crunched outside. He froze, listening. Nothing. Only the wind, only snow. The cabin creaked. Inside, firelight flickered across their faces. The baby yawned. She adjusted it closer. He didn't move. They sat together, trapped in heat and cold, life and danger. The room felt alive, yet suspended. Outside, the dark held secrets. Inside, they held each other just barely. She shivered again. He threw one more log on the fire. Sparks shot up. Shadows played across her face. The baby whimpered, small but insistent. She rocked it. He nodded. "Don't fall asleep," he whispered. "I won't," she said. Snow fell silently outside. Their breaths mingled with smoke. She closed her eyes briefly. He watched her, alert, waiting. Time stretched. No words came. Only the fire, only the baby, only the quiet understanding that survival tonight depended on them both. Then her water broke again, a faint wet sound on the floor. He dropped to his knees, grabbed a bucket, hands steady. She gasped, tensed. He whispered, "I've got you." She squeezed the knife loosely, didn't resist. He worked quickly. Water ran. She shivered. He adjusted the blanket. Baby moved. Life persisted. He said nothing. She exhaled. Outside, a coyote barked once. Then nothing. Inside, fire crackled. They stayed like that, each listening to the quiet, hearts thrumming, knowing danger was out there, knowing trust was thin, but alive, tenuous, present. And for now, that was enough. She arched, gasping, and gripped the floorboards. His hands were steady on her hips, pressing, holding, guiding. "I can't," she said, shaking. "You are," he said. "Don't look at me." "I have to," she whispered. He ignored it, kept steady. She cried out, sweat on her brow, snow-streaked memories running behind her eyes. The baby came fast, slick and screaming, and she clutched him, shaking, tears running. He held it as it emerged, blood-hot and wet, and lifted it carefully, wrapped it in her coat. She screamed, ragged and raw, and he shook his head, silent. He brushed hair from her face, wiped her mouth with the corner of a cloth. The baby cried again, high-pitched, urgent, claiming life before anyone asked permission. She held it to her chest, rocking slightly, whispering a name. Not hers. He nodded. "Good," he said. She exhaled, still trembling. They both sat back, chests heaving. Outside, snow pressed against the cabin, silent and heavy. She whispered, "They'll come." "Who?" "Everyone." He didn't flinch. Smoke curled from the chimney. He gathered the bloody rags from the floor, tossed them in the fire outside, watching the smoke rise straight into the air. He returned and sat across from her. The baby cooed weakly. She held it tighter, eyes on him, searching, trying to guess his thoughts. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "Neither did I," he replied. Silence followed, the kind that stretched tight and long. Her hand brushed the baby's cheek. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded once. Just tired." He offered her water. She shook her head. He let it be. The night pressed against the windows. Every snap of a branch outside made them flinch. She leaned back, exhausted. The baby whimpered and fussed. He helped her adjust it, still silent. They stayed like that, bound by need and life and threat. Minutes passed, then her hand went to the folded letter she'd hidden, brushing it against the baby's blanket. He noticed, eyes narrowing. "You planning to show me?" she asked, almost daring. "Not yet," he said. "You should," she muttered, but didn't move. He nodded. "Later. For now, survive." Her eyes closed, and she exhaled a shaky breath. Outside, distant dogs howled. Inside, the fire popped and crackled, shadows dancing across her face. The baby yawned, small and raw. He watched her, saw the relief mingled with fear. "You'll stay awake?" he asked. "I will," she whispered. He nodded once. The snow pressed harder against the cabin. Another wave of pain hit her. He slid closer, hands steady, guiding, supporting. "Don't fall asleep," he murmured. "I won't," she said. She grasped the baby tighter. Time slowed, each second measured in breath, blood, and the cries of life. Outside, the world pressed against the cabin, harsh and indifferent. Inside, they clung to each other, two living bodies, a newborn, and a fragile sense of something that could be called safety. She shivered, and he pulled her coat tighter, adjusted the baby. Sweat and blood, tears and fear mingled in the small room. She whispered the name again. He repeated it quietly. They stayed like that, listening to every sound, every shift in the firelight. The baby's cries softened, turning to small whimpers. She leaned back, still trembling, eyes wide, taking shallow breaths. He waited, silently, hands near, ready, watching. Snow pressed against the walls. Silence held. Then she closed her eyes briefly, just for a moment. He watched, knowing the night would be long and danger close. But for now, life had arrived, raw and demanding. He breathed slowly, keeping pace with her, with the baby, with the quiet rhythm of survival. Another howl outside, distant. He tightened his grip on the floorboards, ready for movement, ready for anything. She exhaled, held the baby close, whispering softly. He didn't speak. The fire flickered and cast long shadows. Outside, the night remained indifferent. Inside, they existed. She trembled, shivering, sweating, alive. He adjusted the blanket one last time. "Don't fall asleep," he whispered again. "I won't," she said, faint but firm. Life pressed in on all sides. He nodded. Smoke from the fire drifted up the chimney, the only witness to their survival. The baby stirred, small hands waving, unheeded but alive. She breathed slowly, calming herself, calming it. He watched her, silent sentinel. Outside, the wind whispered. Inside, life persisted, fierce and fragile. She leaned back, eyes half closed, baby pressed to her chest. He let her, kept vigil. Minutes stretched into hours. Snow pressed against the roof. The fire crackled, whispered. The baby yawned. She exhaled again. He remained steady, unmoving, hands resting near. The world outside waited, but they existed within the cabin, breathing, surviving. She whispered the name softly again. He nodded, eyes on the flames. Outside, dogs howled. Inside, nothing else mattered. She held the baby closer, shivering, trembling, alive. He stayed, watchful. Smoke drifted, fire flickered. The night passed slowly. They endured. Life demanded it. She exhaled. The baby stirred. He adjusted her coat. Another sigh. Outside, snow fell, relentless. Inside, they remained, alive. She whispered the name one last time, soft, certain. He nodded. The fire crackled. The baby yawned, life insistent. Outside, a distant howl. Inside, stillness. They had survived the birth, survived the night. The baby's cries softened. She held it tight, shivering. He sat back, letting them be. Snow pressed against the windows. Fire popped. Shadows moved. Life persisted. They waited, held, breathed, and endured. Outside, dogs faded. Inside, warmth lingered. The baby cooed. She exhaled. He exhaled. Silence held, but no threat came. For now, they survived. The knock came sharp, startling. Not timid. Not polite. 3 heavy hits that rattled the cabin walls. She froze, the baby stiff in her arms. He went to the door first, hand hovering near the latch. Outside, voices called through the snow. We heard a woman crying. Coyotes cry. So do liars. He didn't answer, just cracked the door, letting a sliver of light and menace in. She ducked behind the table, gripping the baby like it was armor. The sheriff stepped forward, a smile stretched too thin, eyes calculating. You cut timber on Hawthorne land, right? The lumberjack's jaw tightened. Who wants to know? The man laughed softly. Just checking on neighbors. She whispered from behind the table, they killed my husband. Why? Because he wouldn't vote right. The words slipped out, raw and quick, but he said nothing, not yet. The sheriff's men circled, eyes flicking to her, to the baby, to the logs stacked neatly by the fire. The baby whimpered. She rocked it, quiet, tense, watching the men like they were predators in a forest. He stepped in front of her. You don't scare me. No. But the truth does. One of the men shifted, boots scraping the floor. They weren't here to help, but to measure, to count, to intimidate. She kept her eyes down, trying to make herself small, trying to disappear into the floorboards. Outside, wind rattled the shutters. He put a hand on the table, fingers curling. Keep moving, he muttered, mostly to himself. The sheriff's eyes flicked to the burned bad-shaped scar on her wrist. Recognition. History. Wait. He paused. Something in him hesitated, a memory he didn't let out. The men left then, slowly, carefully, as if stepping through a minefield. Not convinced, not gone, not done. Silence pressed into the cabin, heavy and real. She exhaled, relief mingling with lingering fear. He sat beside her, keeping a careful eye on the door. Outside, the snow muffled all sound, but the tension lingered like smoke. She whispered, "They'll be back." He didn't reply. He just stoked the fire, tossing logs onto it, sparks rising like warning signals. The baby stirred, small whimpers breaking the quiet. She adjusted it in her arms, breathing slowly, carefully, trying to steady herself. The lumberjack glanced at her, then at the baby. Safe for now, he said, though the words were not a promise. She leaned against the wall, exhausted, shivering slightly. Outside, the forest was silent again. He poured water into a tin cup, offered it. She refused. He drank it anyway, glancing out the door, alert. Shadows shifted in the corners of the cabin, heavy and alive. The baby whimpered again. She hushed it, whispering softly. He didn't move, watching, waiting. You okay? He asked finally. She nodded once. I'm scared, she admitted, voice low. Good, he said. That means you're alive. Outside, a branch cracked, a sharp report in the cold night. She flinched. He got to the door, peering into the dark. Nothing. Just trees and snow and the faint trail they'd left behind. He closed the door slowly, pressing his weight against it. Don't fall asleep, he whispered to her. I won't, she said. Silence returned, tense and thick. She wrapped the baby closer, breath mingling with its small movements. He sat back, eyes on the fire, calculating, waiting. They both knew the sheriff's men would come again. The cabin, the logs, the fire, the baby, all of it hung in fragile balance. Minutes passed. The baby cooed softly. She exhaled, chest rising and falling, eyelids heavy. He kept his hands near, alert. Outside, the wind howled lightly. Shadows stretched across the walls. She touched the scar on her wrist absent-mindedly. He noticed, said nothing. They both understood. The past wasn't gone. The threat wasn't gone. But for now, they survived. The baby stirred, shifting, cooing again. She whispered its name. He nodded once. Fire popped. Snow pressed against the windows. They stayed like that, side by side, alert and alive, the night outside thick and dark, the inside warmer and dangerous, but theirs. The sheriff's name hung in her mind, a ghost. The lumberjack's eyes stayed on the fire, then flicked to the window, then back to her and the child. All was quiet again, almost. Almost, but not quite. The weight of the world pressed on the cabin, but inside, life clung stubbornly, defiantly. She shivered. He threw another log on the fire. Sparks rose. She held the baby closer. They listened to the wind, to distant sounds, to nothing at all. Outside, the snow fell. Inside, survival, the days blurred. She moved slowly across the cabin floor, cradling the baby, hair falling over her face. He watched her, silent, hands rough from chopping, eyes sharp. "You running?" he asked one morning. "I was," she admitted, voice low, careful. "From what?" "From being erased," she said, shaking. He said nothing, just poured water into a tin cup and set it near the fire. She adjusted the baby, swaying slightly, whispering the name again. She was a witness. Her husband had testified. A governor's brother had signed the order. She produced letters, folded and tucked in the baby's blanket. He took them slowly, reading one aloud, "If I disappear, believe her." The words hung in the air, thick with fear and trust. He looked at the child differently now, the small life in her arms a kind of proof, a tether to what mattered. She watched him, waiting for reaction. He gave none. Locked the door for the first time, then checked the latch, as if sealing them off from the rest of the world. She exhaled, relief mingling with fatigue, shoulders sagging. The baby whimpered. He lifted a log from the stack, fed the fire, watched it burn. Outside, snow pressed against the cabin like a quiet threat. He leaned back against the wall, hands on his knees, observing her and the baby. Minutes passed. She shifted, smoothing the blanket over the child, whispering softly. He waited, listening. The letters were heavy with secrets, dangerous and alive. Each one held a threat, each word a reminder. She glanced up at him. "You're not going anywhere," he said, and she knew he meant it. The baby cried, high and sharp. She picked it up, rocking, murmuring its name. He moved a chair closer, sat, hands near but relaxed. Silence stretched, broken only by the fire and the baby. She finally spoke. "They'll come." "Who?" "Everyone," she said. He nodded. "Not all at once. Not today." He went to the table, spread the letters, scanning them quickly. Every line, every signature, every mark a piece of the danger they now carried. She watched him, waiting for some reaction. He said nothing. The weight of it pressed in. Outside, branches scraped the windows. She shivered. He tossed another log on the fire, sparks rising like tiny warnings. The baby moved, squirmed, cried softly. She adjusted it in her arms. He observed, silent, calculating, planning. Survival was delicate. Each decision mattered. She whispered the baby's name again. He nodded. Outside, snow fell, relentless. Inside, life persisted. The letters sat heavy on the table, a reminder, a threat, a key. She shifted, wrapping the baby tighter. He fed the fire. Sparks rose, smoke curling up the chimney. The cabin felt alive, haunted, fragile. She touched the scar on her wrist, tracing the burn shape absent-mindedly. He noticed. Didn't comment. They shared a quiet understanding. Danger waited outside, the sheriff and the men and the world they ran from. Inside, there was warmth, fire, life. Minutes passed. The baby yawned, small fingers curling. She breathed slowly, adjusting the blanket. He stayed nearby, watching. They both knew the letters changed everything. Power was written there, waiting to be unleashed. She finally relaxed slightly, eyelids heavy, baby pressing against her chest. He adjusted the blanket one last time. Outside, the snow muffled the night. Fire crackled, shadows moved across the walls. Life persisted, fragile but defiant. She exhaled. The baby stirred. He adjusted her coat, checked the latch again. Another sigh. Outside, the world waited, harsh and indifferent. Inside, they endured. They had the letters, the fire, the baby, each other. That was enough for now. The cabin felt like a refuge, even if temporary. She whispered the name softly. He nodded. Smoke drifted up the chimney. The night pressed in. They waited. Snow fell heavier. Baby cooed. She leaned back against the wall, shivering, tired, alive. He watched, steady, alert. The letters remained on the table, evidence, threat, promise. She exhaled. The baby yawned again. He fed the fire. They sat together, breathing, waiting, surviving. Time moved slow, measured in heartbeats, in sparks, in the baby's cries. Outside, the wind pressed against the cabin. Inside, they persisted. She held the baby close, whispered softly. He nodded, steady and unyielding. Smoke trailed into the night. Life held on. They breathed, alive. Danger loomed, but the cabin, fire, letters, child, and each other made a fragile fortress. They endured, silently, determined. The world outside could wait. Inside, they were alive, watching, surviving, ready for what came next. The dawn came sharp, burning through the thin cabin windows like accusation. Smoke and fire hit before he even saw the flames. The cabin was half engulfed, the roof smoking, wood cracking under heat. He grabbed her arm. Go, not without you. I said go. Say it again. He hauled her and the baby through the side door, snow already melting under the heat. Outside, they ran, boots sinking into slush and ash. Gunfire cracked behind them. She dropped low, clutching the child. He pressed her into a hollow under a pine, snow and smoke mixing around them. Keep moving. She gasped, panic raw. I can't. Yes, you can. He pushed them forward toward an abandoned logging camp he remembered, its buildings half collapsed, the smell of old sap and rot thick in the air. They reached a well. She sank to her knees, shivering, exhausted, tears freezing on her face. He crouched beside her, hands on her shoulders. It's okay. Just stay here. She sobbed, gripping the baby. I can't stop shaking. He pulled her into him, steadying her without romance, just warmth, just pressure. You can stay. As long as you need. Outside, the forest crackled with distant gunshots. They listened. The baby stirred, small hands waving. She whispered its name, clinging, rocking, quieting it with her voice. He scanned the tree lean, snow pressed into branches, waiting. Another shot rang out, closer. He shook his head. They're gone. For now. She rested her head against his chest, breath catching. I thought I was going to die. You're alive. That's enough. She exhaled, shivering into him. The snow pressed against the camp buildings, drifted across the old boards, a blanket and a threat. He lifted a log from a ruined stack, tossed it into a small fire they managed to light, sparks flying like warnings. She watched him, hair frozen to her face, cheeks red from cold and panic. The baby whimpered. She rocked it, whispering softly, trying to steady both their hearts. He adjusted the blanket around the child, then turned to the trees, scanning for any movement. Outside, wind tore through pines. Another gunshot far off. She squeezed the baby tighter. He held her, steadying, listening. The cabin was gone, reduced to ash, smoke curling into gray sky. Her life, the child, and him, the only constants. Minutes passed. They sat together, quiet but alert, eyes on the forest, hands ready. He spoke softly, just enough to anchor her. You're safe for now. She nodded, chest heaving, tears and soot on her cheeks. the baby stirred again. She hummed a low tune, soothing it, grounding herself. Snow drifted across their makeshift shelter, softening the world. He watched her, breathing steady. Life persisted, defiant. He stayed close, silent sentinel. She exhaled, the first long, calm breath since the fire. He didn't move away. The forest waited, indifferent, but inside their small camp, warmth and protection clung like a fragile skin. She finally leaned back, still trembling, eyes half-closed, holding the baby. He adjusted the blanket one more time, hands lingering near, protective. Sparks rose from the fire, lighting their faces. They breathed in unison, life claiming its place again. Another shot sounded, distant, fading. Outside, snow fell silently. Inside, he held her steady. She whispered, "You can stay. As long as you want." He nodded once. Smoke drifted, fire crackled. The baby yawned, tiny and raw. She exhaled. He remained alert, ready for what came next. The forest loomed, cold and threatening. They clung to each other, alive, warm, enduring. The sun rose behind gray clouds, indifferent. Inside, the fire glowed. Life persisted. She shifted slightly, pressing the child closer. He tightened his arm around her, steady, unyielding. Snow pressed against the abandoned camp's edges, wind whistled, but they existed within their fragile fortress. She whispered the baby's name again. He nodded. The world could wait. For now, they had each other, heat, life, and the fragile claim of survival. Smoke drifted into the sky, carrying ash, fear, and a quiet kind of hope. They remained, alert and alive, shivering but steady, holding on. Outside, danger lingered. Inside, life endured, defiant and strong. They hid underground, the cold biting through thin blankets, the baby pressed between them. Silence stretched like a living thing, heavy and expectant. She whispered, "Do you hear that?" "Hear what?" "Him." She shivered, eyes wide, clutching the child tighter. His hands rested lightly on hers, steady, grounding. She admitted then, voice trembling, that she had run before the testimony ended. "I had to," she said. "I couldn't stay." He listened, quiet. "I know," he replied. "My father," he started slowly, then stopped, swallowing hard. "Died in a mine collapse. Covered up. Same family. Same men." She looked at him, stunned. Shared enemy, shared wound. The baby shifted, tiny hands curling. They stayed low, listening. Footsteps above, real or imagined, made them flinch in unison. The dirt walls pressed around them, cold, damp, and unyielding. Whispers from her lips, murmurs, half confession, half prayer. He didn't answer, only touched her arm lightly, steadying. Outside, the snow muted all sound, but the tension pressed in anyway. Minutes passed, measured in heartbeats, in babies' whimpers, in the scraping of distant trees. She exhaled slowly, leaning into him, exhausted and wary. He adjusted her hold on the child. "Don't fall asleep," he murmured. "I won't," she whispered, voice raw. Shadows shifted over the dirt floor, the low ceiling pressing, oppressive. The baby yawned, tiny, insistent, alive. She breathed with the child, steadying herself. He whispered, "We'll get through this." She nodded faintly, eyes on the ceiling, listening to imagined footsteps, counting them, fearing them. They stayed like that, time suspended, each aware of the other's presence, the baby between them a fragile proof of life. She shivered again, pressing the baby closer. "I should have died," she said softly. "Not here," he said. "Not today." Outside, a branch snapped. Both flinched. Inside, the dirt walls held them, secret and hidden. She whispered the baby's name again, softly, deliberately. He nodded. Smoke from a small hidden stove drifted upward, curling and thin. Another movement above, faint. "Nothing but imagination," he said, holding her tighter. She exhaled, leaning into him. The baby stirred, tiny limbs moving, weak cries softening. Their breaths synced, the rhythm of life anchoring them to the present. She pressed her forehead to the baby's head, whispering low, calming, murmuring, grounding. He rested his hand on hers, fingers brushing. Outside, wind whistled, snow pressing against the cabin roof, distant and relentless. Inside, the dark pressed too, suffocating at times, but they endured. She whispered again, telling him the truth she had carried alone. He listened, steady, absorbing it. Shared enemy, shared pain. Outside, a distant dog barked once. The baby yawned, stretching tiny fingers. She exhaled, finally, letting out the tension she had held tight for days. He tightened his arm around her shoulders. They stayed, low to the floor, listening to every creak and sigh in the earth above. Time slowed, measured by breath, heartbeat, the baby's stirrings. She shivered slightly, exhausted. He whispered again, "We're safe, for now." She nodded faintly. Outside, the wind moaned, snow pressed. Inside, warmth clung to their bodies. Life endured. The baby stirred once more, cooing faintly. She smiled, tired, relieved. He touched the top of her head lightly, a quiet promise. Outside, the forest waited, cold, indifferent. Inside, they existed, alive, bound together by fear, grief, and necessity. Minutes passed. Shadows moved over the walls. The baby laughed softly, breaking the tension, a sudden sound that filled the underground space. She laughed too, small, relieved, fragile. He exhaled, tension leaving his shoulders. Outside, the snow fell harder. Inside, life persisted. They held each other, the baby, the fragile warmth, the unspoken understanding of survival and shared grief. Darkness pressed, but they endured. Silence settled, finally, heavy but not threatening. She shifted, eyes half closed, baby pressed to her chest. He stayed near, steady, alert, watching, listening. Smoke drifted from the hidden stove, curling upward. Outside, snow pressed. Inside, they remained, alive. Small, fragile, defiant, alive as they returned at dusk, boots crunching on hardened snow, the letters hidden in his coat. She clutched the baby, eyes sharp, scanning every shadow. Power shifted in the air, subtle, dangerous. They weren't hiding anymore, they were moving to confront. He handed her the first bundle of letters. "Burn these," she whispered. Outside, wind tore across the field, snow swirling. They set them on the fire, flames licking edges, curling the secrets into smoke. She held the baby tight, watching. A carriage approached slowly, lights dim in the twilight. The sheriff stepped down, face set, badge glinting. "You don't scare me," she said, voice steady despite trembling. "No. But the truth does," he replied. The sheriff hesitated. The governor's brother stepped forward, suit dusted with snow. He froze when the smoke hit his face, letters curling, words consumed. Flames reflected in eyes wide with fear. The sheriff's hand hovered near his belt, but he didn't move. They had done what was supposed to stay hidden. Public now. Fire ate the paper, and with it, a piece of the power that had haunted them. The baby stirred, small cries breaking the tension. She hummed softly, rocking it, defiant, unafraid. The sheriff glanced at her, then at the flames. His face tightened. The governor's brother bolted, disappearing into the snow, leaving only footprints behind. Silence fell heavy, except for the crackle of fire and the wind in the trees. She exhaled, brushing soot from her sleeve. He watched, eyes scanning, alert still. The sheriff's hand went to his badge. He removed it slowly, letting it drop into the snow. Metal kissed ice, final and quiet. Outside, the forest swallowed the sound. They didn't move, waiting, watching. The baby yawned, tiny hands waving. She leaned back, exhausted but steady, holding it close. He adjusted a log in the fire, watching sparks rise, eyes on the trees, ready for anything. Outside, night pressed, cold and indifferent. Inside, warmth lingered, fragile but unyielding. The letters were gone, the threat diminished, but the weight of all that had happened pressed on them still. She whispered the baby's name. He nodded. They had done what they could. The sheriff lingered at the edge of the firelight, tense, uncertain. The governor's brother was gone. Threat dissolved, for now. She exhaled, finally letting the tension bleed from her body. He stayed near, silent, protective. The baby stirred again, cooing faintly. They breathed, holding each other, alert but steady. Outside, wind howled through trees. Inside, life persisted. She shifted slightly, pressing the child closer. He adjusted the blanket, watching the shadows. Sparks rose from the fire, curling upward, carrying the last of the letters and the fear they held. She exhaled, whispering softly. He nodded, silent. Snow pressed against the cabin edges, but they existed within their fragile space, warm, defiant. Life endured. The sheriff finally turned, stepping back into the dark. Outside, cold pressed. Inside, they remained. Smoke drifted upward. The baby yawned, stretching tiny limbs. She breathed slowly, settling. He tightened his arm around her shoulders. Fire crackled. Shadows danced. Life held on. They had faced power, exposed secrets, survived threats. Outside, night waited. Inside, warmth persisted. They exhaled, tired but steady. The baby cooed. She smiled, faintly, relieved. He remained vigilant, steady, alive. Snow drifted. Fire crackled. They were still here. They were still alive as they stayed close, rebuilding slowly, wood and snow and stubborn hands marking the space as theirs. She named herself now, voice firm, deliberate, cutting through the weight of the past. He watched her, quiet, steady. You staying? He asked one morning, boots scraping the cabin floor. If you want me, she said, eyes fixed on the small child moving between them. I do, he replied, voice low but certain. They carried logs together, stacked walls, patched gaps. Snow pressed against the windows, relentless, but inside, warmth persisted. The baby laughed, small, raw, first laughter that didn't feel wrong. She pressed it to her chest, humming softly. He fed the fire, sparks rising into the cold air. Outside, wind cut through the trees, but inside, life claimed its space. She dug through a pack, pulling seeds from a worn cloth, planting them where the old cabin had burned. He watched, hands resting on the baby's blanket, observing each careful movement. Smoke drifted upward from the stove, curling against the low ceiling. Silence fell between them, not heavy, not threatening, just present. She shifted, adjusting the child, brushing snow from its tiny hair. He sat beside her, hands near, alert but relaxed. Minutes passed, measured only by breathing, by small movements, by the fire's crackle. They talked sometimes, soft voices, no plans, no promises beyond survival. I like this, she whispered, gesturing to the new cabin, the small cleared patch of land. He nodded. It'll do. Outside, trees groaned under snow, indifferent. Inside, they existed, warm, alive. She shifted again, planting another seed, pressing it into the frozen earth. He leaned back, observing, steady. The baby cooed, tiny fingers curling, pressing against her chest. She hummed again, soft, steady, life-insistent. He watched the fire, listening to the forest, alert. Snow drifted past the cabin, covering tracks, erasing traces of what had been. She smiled faintly at the baby. He nodded. Time moved slowly, measured in heartbeats and sparks. She touched his arm lightly. Thank you, she said, almost whisper. For what? For not leaving. He didn't answer, just fed the fire. They stayed, side by side, warm, alive, careful, alert. The baby laughed again, small, clear. She exhaled, pressing it closer. Outside, the wind pressed, snow fell, cold and indifferent. Inside, they breathed, persisted, endured. They worked together, built together, survived together. Each moment claimed. Each day a small victory. She named a tree, watching it grow where old ashes had lain. He nodded, approving silently. The baby stirred, cooed, rolled slightly in her arms. She pressed it closer. Life endured. Snow drifted. Shadows moved gently across the cabin walls. They listened, alert, steady, hearts in sync. The forest waited outside, silent, vast, cold. Inside, warmth and small victories persisted. They ate, slept, whispered, survived. The baby laughed, fingers curling. She smiled, pressing it against her chest. He adjusted the blanket, steady, vigilant. The wind moaned outside. Inside, laughter, warmth, life. They built walls, planted seeds, claimed the land with small hands and persistence. Snow covered all else. Inside, they held each other, the baby, and the fragile sense of home. Minutes became hours, hours became days, measured in quiet breathing, soft laughter, sparks, and whispered names. They exhaled together, small, fragile, enduring. Life pressed in. They held it close, choosing it, holding tight. Outside, cold and silence. Inside, warmth and life, fiercely claimed. She smiled, small but steady. He nodded. The baby cooed again. They remained alive. The first laughter that didn't feel wrong lingered, echoing softly. Snow pressed against windows. Fire crackled. They existed, survived, endured. Together, she walked slowly through the graveyard, snow crunching beneath boots, baby wrapped tightly against her chest. Each step pressed against memory, against absence, against the weight of what had been stolen. The burned badge lay in her palm, cold metal biting through leather gloves. She knelt at her husband's grave, fingers tracing the etched name, pressed the badge into the snow atop the headstone. "You happy?" she whispered, voice soft, fragile. "I'm alive," came the quiet reply, not to her but to the world, to herself, to the child nestled against her. "That counts," she murmured, letting the words settle in the cold. She exhaled, watching snow settle over stone, over the badge, over history and loss alike. The lumberjack appeared silently, boots crunching softly, the baby cooing in its sleep. He knelt beside her, hands steady on her shoulders. "Not everything is fixed," he said. "But something survives." She looked at him, tears frozen on her cheeks. He held the child, fingers brushing the tiny hands, watching, alert but gentle. Snow fell heavier, covering footprints, softening edges, but they remained, a family claimed by choice, by survival, by defiance. She exhaled again, brushing her hair from her eyes, looking around at the muted graves, at the trees bent under the weight of white, at the quiet world that had waited while they fought to survive. They rose together, slow, careful, moving back toward the cabin that waited for them beyond the trees. Inside, warmth pressed against cold, fire breathing against the dark. She set the baby down in the cradle, still wrapped in blankets, its small hands curling and uncurling. He fed the fire, sparks dancing like tiny suns in the shadows. They moved together, not speaking much, voices soft, unnecessary, lives intertwined through fear, grief, and the fragile claim of love. Outside, the forest loomed, indifferent, harsh, cold, but behind the cabin walls, life persisted. She opened the door, letting the snow drift in, letting the cold remind them of all they had survived. He adjusted the logs, fire crackling, shadows moving across walls, light and dark intertwining, life and threat balanced. She walked slowly to the garden, tiny sprouts pressed through frozen earth, remnants of seeds planted after fire and grief. She knelt, hands brushing snow from the fragile life beneath, pressing gently, protecting. He watched, steady, silent sentinel. They breathed together, side by side, life insistent. The baby stirred, cooing, small fingers pressing against blankets, small movements pressing against memory and loss. Snow fell steadily outside, soft and unrelenting. Inside, warmth pressed, life endured, choices persisted. She exhaled, finally, letting tension seep away. He leaned against the wall, watching, alert, steady. They had survived everything, claimed something permanent. Not perfect, not safe forever, but theirs. She smiled faintly, brushing the baby's hair. He nodded, steady. Fire crackled. Shadows moved. Snow fell, pressing against walls. Inside, laughter emerged softly, careful, real, tiny but unafraid. She exhaled, letting the moment settle. They held each other, child, and the fragile sense of home, breathing together. Outside, cold and silence. Inside, warmth and life, fiercely preserved. Snow pressed softly, quieting the world. Fire crackled and popped. The baby yawned, stretching tiny limbs. She whispered its name, soft and deliberate. He nodded, steady, watching, alert. Life persisted, raw and fragile, defiant. They exhaled together, small but complete. Snow fell steadily, blanketing the past, but not erasing memory. Inside, warmth held, fire burned, life stayed. They stayed. Chosen family, hard-won peace, survival claimed. She looked at him, then at the baby. "I'm alive," she whispered again. "That counts." Snow drifted across the cabin, quiet now, protective. Fire crackled. Shadows danced. They existed, together, safe in the moment they had made. Outside, the world waited, indifferent. Inside, a life that stayed, resilient, warm, and alive.